You're sitting in traffic. It's been 22 minutes. You're not moving. The exit is right there. You can see it, but the line of cars in front of you has turned the road into a parking lot. Then someone does it. They come from nowhere, slides in from the merge lane, cuts straight in front of you, without a blink, without a signal, without even a glance in the mirror. And something happens. Not irritation, not mild frustration. Something older than that. Something hotter. Your jaw locks. Your hands tighten around the wheel. A thought crosses your mind that you would never say out loud to another person, at a dinner table, at work, in any room with other humans in it. But here, alone, inside this metal box, moving at 50 miles an hour, it feels completely reasonable. Here's what nobody tells you. That feeling isn't a personality flaw. It isn't a bad day leaking out. It is a specific neurological event, and your car is the trigger. The research behind road rage doesn't just explain why you got angry. It explains why the car creates a version of you that the rest of your life never sees. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand something uncomfortable. The person you become behind the wheel, that's not a stranger. That's still you. Let's start with what the numbers actually show. The AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety tracked driving behavior across the United States for 3 years. What they found wasn't a handful of extreme cases. 80% of drivers reported experiencing significant anger, aggression, or road rage behind the wheel in the previous year. 80%. That is not a minority, that is nearly everyone, and it isn't harmless. The study found that aggressive driving, tailgating, brake checking, deliberate blocking, physical confrontations was a contributing factor in more than half of all fatal road crashes during that period. But here is where it gets specific. A 2014 study published in the journal Personality and Individual Differences found that road rage is not randomly distributed across the population. Drivers who scored higher on psychopathy and narcissism, 2 of the 3 traits in what psychologists call the Dark Triad, were significantly more likely to exhibit aggressive driving behaviors. Not occasionally aggressive, systematically aggressive, habitually. The car didn't cause the trait, but the car switched it on. And now we need to talk about why, because the answer isn't just about personality type. It's about what the car itself does to your brain before you've even made a conscious decision. In 1939, a group of Yale psychologists published a paper that would reshape how we understand human anger, the frustration-aggression hypothesis. The idea is deceptively simple. Whenever a goal is blocked, the natural response is aggression, not as a choice, as a reflex. The brain interprets a blocked goal as a threat, and aggression is the threat response. You are driving to work. The goal? Arrive on time. The block? The person who just cut you off. The response? A surge of anger, so fast and so physical that it is already happening before your conscious mind has caught up. Now here is what makes this different from, say, a slow line at the grocery store. The car adds something the grocery store doesn't. Anonymity. Think about what you can see of another driver, a silhouette, maybe a face, for a second. No name, no history, no relationship, no social consequence for what you do next. In every other area of your life, aggression is regulated by visibility. You don't scream at the person who bumps into you at the coffee shop because they can see your face, they know what you look like. There is a social cost. Inside the car, that cost disappears. Psychologists call this deindividuation. The psychological state where anonymity removes your sense of personal accountability. It's the same mechanism behind online trolling, the same reason people behave at a masked party, the way they never would at a work function. The car is a mask, and here's the loop I want you to hold on to. We'll come back to it. If the car is a mask, what does that mean about the aggression it releases? Is that aggression foreign to you, or is it something that was always there, just waiting for the right container? Road rage doesn't happen randomly inside that metal box. There are 4 conditions that produce it almost every time in almost every person, and understanding these conditions is the difference between being a victim of your own nervous system and being the person who sees it coming. The first condition is territorial violation. The car becomes yours the moment you sit in it, not legally, psychologically. Research on territorial cognition shows that humans extend their sense of personal space to whatever they're currently occupying. Your lane isn't just a lane. Your brain registers it as an extension of your body. When someone cuts into your lane without warning, your nervous system doesn't process it as a traffic inconvenience. It processes it as a physical intrusion. The second condition is time pressure. A 2019 study from the University of Nottingham found that stress from perceived time loss was one of the strongest predictors of aggressive driving, more than the actual severity of the traffic event. It isn't what happened, it's what it cost you. A 2-minute delay feels like a personal attack when you are already running behind. The brain doesn't do math in those moments, it assigns blame. The third condition is power asymmetry. Notice who gets most aggressive with who. It is rarely a driver of a small car, tailgating an SUV. Vehicle size is perceived as social status on the road. Research from the University of California found that drivers of larger, more powerful vehicles were significantly more likely to behave aggressively towards smaller vehicles and significantly less likely to yield. The car makes hierarchy visible in a way most of modern life tries to hide. The fourth condition, and this is the one that locks the other three in place, is absence of social consequence. No eye contact, no name, no relationship, no lasting record of what happened. The frustration has an outlet. The outlet has no cost. And the brain, which evolved in a world where aggression was only triggered by survival threats, now fires at a stranger who merged without signaling. These four conditions don't explain why some people get angrier than others, but they explain why almost no one is immune. Here is where I want to slow down. Because the research doesn't just tell us that people get angry in cars, it tells us which version of themselves they bring to the wheel. A 2016 study looked at the relationship between driving behavior and the big 5 personality traits. It found something counterintuitive. It wasn't just low agreeableness that predicted road rage. It was also low emotional stability, combined with high neuroticism. People who felt the most uncertain about their own social standing in daily life were the most likely to become aggressive behind the wheel. Think about what that means. The person who is the most controlled, the most professional, the most measured at work can step into a car and become unrecognizable. Not because the car revealed a secret monster, because the car removed the architecture of self-control that their daily life depends on. Humans maintain their behavior through social mirrors. Other people watching you, knowing you, holding a picture of who you are, this is what keeps the self consistent. Take away the mirrors. You take away the guardrails. And this is where the second loop I want you to hold needs to land. Earlier I asked, is the aggression in road rage foreign to you, or was it always there? Here's what the research suggests. It was always there. Not as a disorder, not as a dysfunction, as a survival system that never fully switched off. Every human brain carries circuits built for threat response, status competition, and territorial defense. Those circuits didn't appear on the highway. They've been part of you since long before you could drive. The car doesn't create road rage. The car removes the layer of civilization that was covering it. And here's the uncomfortable question that the research raises, but no one usually asks out loud. If the car reveals who you are without consequences, what does that person say about you? There is one final mechanism that makes road rage not just common, but self-reinforcing. And it is the most important thing in this video. When you feel road rage, your brain releases a specific cocktail of neurochemicals: cortisol, adrenaline, dopamine. The cortisol and adrenaline produce the anger response. That part most people know. But the dopamine is the part nobody talks about. Dopamine is a reward signal, and the brain releases it during road rage, not because aggression is pleasurable in the gentle sense, but because the brain interprets action against a threat as a successful survival response. You felt threatened, you responded. Dopamine says, "Good job, you survived." The problem is the brain cannot tell the difference between a real survival threat and someone who merged without signaling. So every time road rage gets expressed, every honk, every brake check, every muttered thing you say inside that metal box, the brain files it as a successful coping strategy. And the next time you are frustrated in a car, the threshold for triggering that response is a little lower. Psychologists call this behavioral reinforcement, the behavior that reduces internal tension gets repeated and repeated until the pathway is so well worn that mild inconvenience on the road becomes intolerable automatically. This is why road rage gets worse with time, not better for people who don't actively interrupt it. This is also why the research on road rage finds something that should stop you. The people who describe themselves as patient, rational people in their daily lives are not automatically protected. Patient people in controlled environments are patient, because the environment is doing some of the work. Put any human in a car, alone, running late, in stop-and-go traffic, cut off by someone they'll never see again, and the architecture of patience starts to come apart. Road rage isn't a character flaw. It is what happens when the infrastructure of self-control collides with the infrastructure of modern driving. And those two systems, were never designed to coexist. I opened this video with a question. The person you become behind the wheel, is that a stranger? The research says, no, that person is you. Specifically, it is the version of you that exists when the social scaffolding comes down, when nobody is watching, when there are no consequences, when the goal is blocked, and the frustration has an outlet, and the dopamine is already promising a reward. The road rage isn't imported, it isn't external, it is the self in its least managed form. And here is the part that makes this more than a psychology lecture. The conditions that produce road rage, anonymity, territorial thinking, time pressure, power asymmetry, absence of social consequence, are not unique to driving. They are conditions that modern life has been building more and more of. Online comment sections, anonymous complaints, environments where you can be aggressive without a face attached to it. The highway is just the oldest version of the problem. We have been designing more and more spaces where the social mirrors come down, where behavior doesn't follow you home, where the architecture of self-control gets removed. And in every one of those spaces, we find the same thing. We find in road rage, people behaving in ways that the rest of their life would never allow. Road rage isn't evidence that you're a bad person. It's evidence that being a good person requires a specific set of conditions. And when those conditions disappear, the behavior follows. The car didn't change who you are. It just stopped making you pretend. So, what is really happening in your brain during road rage? Frustration, triggering an ancient aggression response. Anonymity, removing the social cost. Territory, time pressure. And power, asymmetry, adding fuel. And a dopamine loop that rewards you for every expression of that anger. Quietly building the next one. 4 systems running simultaneously inside a metal box at highway speed. Not because you're broken, because you're human and the car is an extraordinarily well-designed trigger. If this made you think about where else in your life the social mirrors come down and who you are in those spaces, leave a comment. I'd genuinely like to know. And if you want to understand more of the hidden psychology behind why people do what they do when no one is watching, subscribe. That's exactly what this channel is for.